Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I am your host, Richard Kaufman. Guys, this is going to be a fun episode and a great episode. We're going to be talking to my friend Diego, retired Navy SEAL, but we're going to be talking about stuff that you wouldn't normally be talking about when you think about Navy SEALs. We're going to be talking about fear. We're going to be talking about overcoming imposter syndrome. Where there's a lot of stuff we're going to be talking about that you never ever hear talked about. So I just want to say thank you, Diego, for hopping on. How are you doing this morning, and how's everything?
I'm doing amazing, and everything is amazing. Thank you for asking.
I love it. So, like I said, you've done some great things in uniform. Now you're doing some, I think, better things out of uniform. So, tell us a little bit about you, about where you're from, and where you grew up, and how you became the man you became today.
I was so my dad was stationed in the Air Force in England when I was born, Lake and Heath Air Force Base. And then when I was 3, I moved to California, just north of San Francisco, to Travis Air Force Base, where he was stationed. And I hung out there until I graduated high school, and then I joined the Navy from there. And then, just went on that whole
Now,
path. And yeah, it's
were
I'm
you
47, so there's a lot of stuff that's come into my path to create the man that I am today, I would say.
were you good in school? Were you an athlete in high school?
No and no. I was school was terrible for me. And I don't mean that as just, throwing that out there. School was a very dark time for myself because I struggled a lot. I mean, even just turning in homework. I remember when I was in 5th grade, my teacher used to hand out pink slips for every missed assignment. And so it was something that we were all aware of. Um, I would bring home pink slips like almost every other day. And my dad, he's this immigrant from Mexico who had to, bust his ass for literally everything he got. He couldn't understand why I couldn't just do assignments. And I would get pink slips like every other day. And he would, you know, there was something within me that was preventing from that happening. And I knew the trouble that I was in. Um, and that I was going to get into, but still it wasn't enough to get me to be able to do those assignments. So, that didn't end in 5th grade. That went all the way through high school. So I graduated with a 1.63 grade point average, which turns out that's a pot like you can do that. um, but everything changed when I joined the Navy.
Now,
Because then go
were
ahead.
you did you play sports in high school?
Yeah, I played football for a little while. Football was like my dream. I wanted to play for UCLA, going to college, and then I wanted to be on the 49ers. But when I was a sophomore or so, it's funny when I think about it, but I quit the football team because I couldn't stand being yelled at by the coaches. So I just gave up football and decided to go to SEAL training, which is, a little bit more intense than any football coach I ever met. But yeah, I was tired of being yelled at my whole life, so I
I love
just quit
I love
football.
everybody's recruiting story. So talk to us about the day you walked into the recruiter and said, "I want to be a Navy SEAL."
Yeah, they laughed. They're like, "Do you even know?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just saw the movie Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen, and
And
that's exactly what I want to do." And they said, "Well, let's bring you into our office. We're going to show you this video." Um, I forget the name of it. It was like it was the classic recruiting video that they showed to. It's called "Be Someone Special," is what it is. In fact, it's still on YouTube, and it's funny when you watch it because it looks like it was filmed like in the 50s. But uh, I think it was 45 minutes long or something like that. And when I got done watching the video, the 2 guys that were sitting in the office were essentially thinking that I was going to walk in, and I'm like, "No, thanks, I'm good." But all it did was excite me. If my excitement was like at a 15, I was like at a 58. When I walked in, I was like, "Yes, this is exactly what I wanted to do." Like, okay, this is what you want. Let's go. You're probably going to quit though. I'm like, okay, sounds good. So, um, yeah, they gave me a practice ASVAB test. You guys have veteran listeners, so it's, yeah, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude. whatever if I'm getting that right. But they said, yeah, you're not going to have any problem on the ASVAB, which was strange to me. Because I did so terribly in school, I didn't think I was going to do well on that at all, and for good reason, because I failed a part of it, mechanical comprehension, that I didn't know that I needed to pass. I thought, everybody knows. Well, people in the military know that there's one overall score, and then you get all these other scores, inside. I was just told if I wanted to go to SEAL training that I needed a certain score, and I beat that. And I didn't find out until after I went to boot camp that I didn't qualify to go to SEAL training because my mechanical comprehension was 2 points low. But anyway, that set me off in this whole other path. But yeah, that was part of my recruiting experience.
So what was it like? Because like I said, I've had some of your acquaintances on, Mr. Gleason, John McCaskill, Rich Vinny, and I asked them. I said, what is the one thing about all Navy SEALs? And they said, it's not the physical, it's the mental. It's the I'm not going to quit. You're going to have to kill me before I quit, or I'm going to pass out. So, what made you not ring the bell during your going through buds?
A lot of things. I mean, human beings are so complex. Um, I went through twice. So I went through in 1994 in class 199. Uh, it took me 2 years to even make it to buds with all the retests and all the stuff that I had to do just to get there. And when I got there, I wasn't in shape, and I failed all the time runs, and my legs were starting to break, and all of this. And Friday before Hell Week, there was this thing that I didn't even know. It was called a Hell Week board. Like if you failed anything, like the underwater swim or 2 mile ocean swim or running or whatever O course, they brought you in front of this board and say, hey, do you want to, you know, here's what we're going to do with you. And some people made it, and some people, I wasn't the only one who had to go through, but on that day, 4 months into training, they just like, yeah, no, appreciate your time, but you're out of here. And so 4 months of running soft sand runs and boats and logs and all that stuff, especially at that time and at that age, I thought my whole life had been a waste up to that point. I mean, it was heartbroken is not even close to really. It was like this emotional, psychological, just trouncing that happened. And but I didn't quit at that time because there's this saying, you're too stupid to quit kind of thing.
Yeah.
I I really was able to check out even as my legs were breaking under me. I was just keep going kind of thing. Um, I feel like if I was 100% focused and 100% present there, I don't know what I might or might not have done, but I absolutely checked out mentally and just went through all the pain and just did all that stuff. After I got dropped, there was like an 8-year span of at least 3 times a month I would have like these really bad dreams about not making it through, like nightmares. And so I went back, but I didn't go back for the singular reason like I wanted to be a SEAL because it was the only job in the world for me. The reason why I went back was because I was ashamed of myself. Having to have that discussion with other people that, yeah, I was there, but I didn't make it and all that stuff. I mean, they were like, oh, well, you didn't quit. Like, believe it doesn't matter. You either made it or you didn't, especially in our mindset. So um, I can tell you unequivocally that the only reason why I'm sitting in front of you here today is because I was ashamed of myself and I didn't know how to really manage that other than to try to tackle that monster and defeat it and to ultimately, at least in my mind at the time, be successful over it. Um, so yeah, the first time I went through without quitting was because I just checked out. The second time I went through was just because of shame. Yeah.
Um, and your story really touches me because people that know me know I got thrown out of the military the first time for being a drug addict, and
Mm.
and as I was getting arrested for something else, my uncle said something to me. He said, "You know what? I knew you didn't have what it takes to be a military man,"
Mm.
and it ate at me.
Yeah.
And I would wake up in cold sweats and I'd dream about it until I eventually, well, I'm probably one of the only guys you'll ever talk about that actually got back in the military after being thrown out. But it was because of, like, that it was because of the shame, because I didn't become the man that I think I was supposed to be. So I can totally relate to what you were talking about, waking up and having regrets and
I lost you. Can you hear me?
now.
The last part I heard you say was waking up with regrets.
Yeah, I woke up with regrets. I should have did this, should have done that. And then, eventually I did get back in. I finished with over 23 years. But hurt again, hurt on duty, so they discharged me medically. So I still feel like I have some unfinished business, but there's no way I can go back and fix it now. So what was it like, getting back in and actually getting the chance to live your dream at that moment, at that time?
Well, I'm so happy that you said that, um, because really to answer this question, I can sort of, um, I mean, we're having a discussion here, so I can talk about your last comment. And there's everything you can do to fix that. It's not over because it's in the past and you can't ever go back in the military. But there's just, we were talking about, flipping the visual and even the dialogue on some of that, and maybe that's not what you need to fix, and maybe maybe what needs to be fixed is just your understanding of what happened and what is in the moment. Because if you went back, you're a human being. You're 100% aligned with the rat race and their current construct that we have of what is success. If you went back, it probably wouldn't be good enough. You probably make a mistake here or there or whatever because you're, I don't know, fucking human being. And you'd be like, yeah, I did it, and I was glad I was able to do it, but I wasn't so. That's what we do. Um, what can be done, though, and I would say, thankfully, even more so than actually going to undo, because the same thing happened to me. I went back to SEAL training, and it's like, oh, you made it. Like, yeah, but I wasn't the strongest dude there. I wasn't the fastest dude. I had all these kind of, I don't know, excuses not to just be fully grateful for having the opportunity. It could have been done better. One of the guys I coach, he's older than I am, and he plays soccer. And he was telling me, like, yeah, I scored a goal. I'm like, that's awesome. Like 50-year-old dude running around the field just scoring goals. Like, yeah, but I missed two. I was like, who gives a shit? So, we always, I say I always found myself finding almost every opportunity to take myself down a notch, and down a notch, and down a notch. And that you can never escape until you change it. So I, even after, and that was what we were talking before about before the show really started recording was, takes most people 6 months to make it through SEAL training. It took me 10 years. And then after that 10 years, I finally arrived. Not only that, I was a medic. And during my 8-year gap, I was a civilian paramedic. So when I showed up to the SEAL team as a medic, like I was supremely, like, I'm here, I'm ready to be here. I'm ready to go to war no matter what happens to these guys. If they can be saved, like, I'm going to be able to be the guy who can do that. And so um, I went through that process. I saved lives. I went to combat. Uh, I got promoted. I got to mentor and lead some of just the most amazing people I've ever been around. And I retired after 20 years in one day, and I looked around and like, this isn't enough. This is not even I mean, yeah, great, awesome. Made a SEAL. Everybody thinks that being a SEAL is awesome and all that stuff. I got, yeah, but whatever. It still was like emptiness there. So I spent all that time, just trying to reach for that carrot that never came. And then, when I got to the top, the carrot just disappeared. Um, so that's what really led me on this whole other journey of, because the next thing I was going to do was like, okay, well, I retired from the teams. I accomplished that. What's my next thing? Oh, I know. I got to go to college, because I could never do college when I was coming out of high school. But now I know that I can. And if I get my degree, then, you know, then I'm going to be good there. And I'm just not going to have that monkey on my back anymore. And I slightly started to go down that road. And then it dawned on me, thankfully, that, well, what happens when you get your degree? Oh, there's going to be something else. Like, yeah, but there's not so much energy. There's shame behind that. I'm going to college because I'm ashamed of how I performed in high school. And I just realized that I'm just going to continue trying to achieve, and I'm never going to achieve anything. What if I could just be
Uh,
happy just being?
I want to stop right here. I want to thank our sponsors real quick, because I can't wait to talk about what you're doing now. But without the sponsors, the show doesn't go on. I want to thank our sponsors, Maxwell Soaps. If you guys are like me and have diabetic itchy skin, they actually sell no detergent. It's a veteran-owned company, and also for every bar of soap that they sell, they give out to help clean up the streets of California. And also, I want to thank our sponsors. I came out with a brand new coffee called Vertical Momentum Coffee. If you guys missed the military mud coffee, this coffee is tastes tastes a lot better than that, but a lot more energy. But for every bag that we sell, I make $0 on. Everything goes back to help save veterans that are struggling with PTSD and homelessness. So if you guys love coffee with a mission, write coffee down below. Thank you guys so much. But Diego, I want to talk about it because a lot of people would think, okay, you have your trident, you're retiring with 20 years and one day you're on top of the world, but they don't realize that you're looking at yourself like, okay, you're looking around like, now what? Now what do I?
Yeah,
And a lot of people don't realize that once we get out of the military, no matter how much time we've served, a lot of us they lose our mission. A lot of us lose our friends, because even though we still have friends, once we step off base, the military doesn't give a shit about you. Mission first, everything else. So a lot of times we get out and we're left to our own devices, and it's not a nice place to be sometimes. So talk to us about your journey in getting out and what real life is like, not what the fantasy is, but what real life was like.
yeah, I was really lucky to get introduced to a nonprofit organization called the Honor Foundation. And they are an executive transition course that helps special operations guys transition from the military to the corporate world. And by far and away, for the people, the men and women that are involved in special operations that go to this course, their number one fear and concern is, I'm not a SEAL anymore. Now, what am I going to do? Or I'm not an intel specialist anymore. What am I going to do? And so the Honor Foundation helps them find out, what they can do in their next job, and they do an incredible job at doing that. And for anybody who feels like they have extra money and they don't know what else to do with it, nothing they can do is go to honor.org and just dump money into there, because if it wasn't for them, the Trident approach and where I'm at right now, it wouldn't be. So I didn't know anything about starting a business, and they're like, here you go. And they connected me with everybody and their mom to help me build a business plan, marketing, all that stuff. And we have been off to the races since 2018 because of them. But anyway, uh, what I had found later over time was, again, it's still like this external thing. What do I do now that the mission is over? And when you come to a place where you genuinely know in the deepest parts of you what your mission has always been. It doesn't change whether you're in the military or not. That isn't, being a SEAL wasn't my mission. Uh, I never knew that during that whole 30 years, SEAL, all that stuff. But what I didn't realize that whole time was it was just to be. My whole mission was just to live and experience life and learn and grow and develop and all that. So whether I was doing that with a SEAL hat on or a hot dog on a stick hat, like, it doesn't matter. Um, so instead of having this mindset of I lost this, it now becomes when you understand a deeper meaning of why you exist on this earth at all, it it turns into like, oh, what do I get to do now? Like back to what you were saying. It's like I get to do anything in the world, anything I want, you know, then it becomes inspiring and abundant and all this stuff instead of, I'm not going down range anymore with a gun. It's okay. There's other things out there for you that perhaps can even move your soul more than you've ever been moved before. But in the military, you don't have all the time and all in the world to mess with all that stuff. You've got your stuff to do. But when you look at it from perspective that you can literally just dig down and you like coloring, awesome, do that. Doesn't matter what it is. And you'd be amazed when you are the one who's creating your path, how customized and absolutely perfect it can be for you rather than a whole institution telling you, who you are or what you're going to do next. Yeah, it's just the possibilities are endless.
One thing, a couple of weeks ago, I had a young lady. Her name is Sharon Lecter. She co-wrote um, Rich Dad Poor Dad with Mr. Robert Kiyosaki, and they actually had a board game talking about teaching you how to get out of the rat race. And
Is that right?
yeah, they actually have it was called Cash Flow, and it was actually a board game to teach you how to get out of the rat race. So talk to us because we are in the rat race, and the only way to get out of the rat race is to die. You know, there's
Mm,
winners getting out of the rat race.
yeah,
Talk to us about living. I believe in living a purpose-driven life. I
yeah.
believe that God has me here for a reason to help people. So talk about living a life of gratitude. You seem like you have a lot of gratitude in your life. So talk to us about gratitude and also living a purpose-driven life.
Yeah, that's a habit that I was able to kind of evolve in my life. I'm pretty sure it was from Tony Robbins. He had like these 8 very difficult questions that you had to ask yourself, but you had to ask them to yourself every day. And there were things that were related back to gratitude. And the reason for the whole thing is because they looked at like this depression spectrum, and they found that the people who were more grateful for who they were and where they were and what they were in life had lower levels of depression.
Yep.
So I did that for a while, and I don't know. I think it just became part of who I am. I mean, I'm not even joking, man. I mean, I live in San Diego, and I never get tired of the sunsets. Not ever. There's never a sunset happening, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, and I turn around and walk the other way. Nope, I just sit there and I face the sun, and I just sit there and just be. It never gets old. Little things, flowers and stuff. And shoot, when COVID was going on, I don't live very far away from like this protected estuary. But when COVID was going on, the whole world was shutting down. Those animals started to kind of venture out of the estuary and into our neighborhoods. And I'm just sitting here on the fence, and there were like these birds of prey just hanging out on my fence, and like just every fox and all this stuff. So yeah, and I guess the only important thing to say there is that it's got to be genuine. Like I'd never like faking it till you make it is not a thing for me. It's really embracing what it is, and then till you can fully accept what is happening. And Yeah, because fake it until you make it is just lying. The one thing I've learned is that I have to be 100% honest with myself. Otherwise, whatever. It's just, and you end up living on this whatever fictional floating nothingness. But living in truth is really helped to ground me because I don't attach myself really to anything, hardly at all. But being able to be aligned and connected to truth, that's really kind of the only attachment that I need, and it's enough to sustain me. So yeah, and you had another question I can't remember.
Well, I was just thinking because I'm I'm a big proponent of LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn, and I was reading right before we instead of fake fake it before you make it, it says face it and you will make it. To face your whatever you're dealing with, face it head on. Don't fake it. Face whatever you're dealing with, and eventually, if you're in the right headspace and timing, you will hit your mark instead of faking it. And I thought it was just very apropos that I seen that right before we got on. Um,
Yeah,
so talk to us about what a lot of guys that are on there, guys and girls, they're veteranpreneurs, they're veterans and entrepreneurs. What has served you well from the military and the entrepreneur world? What have been some of the similarities?
yeah. I think probably the old cliche stuff of just accountability and discipline. Um, all of the things that I think kind of go hand in hand with being a veteran, being an entrepreneur. So let me maybe see some of the things that I can imagine that are maybe not necessarily so easily connectable. Well, there are things that I had to leave um, in the military to be where I wanted to be with the Trident approach, and one of those things was for sure the bureaucracy of the whole thing. You know, I that's what I love when I reach out to people who want to work with us. I was like, hey, remember all that stuff you kind of had to do in the military that you just say like we don't do that. We don't do anything we don't want to do, and it's amazing. you know, there's a whole other way to look at accountability um, that isn't so fear driven. I left a lot of fear back with the military that doesn't exist with me anymore in an entrepreneur mindset or way of operations. Fear is gone from me. When it does creep in, I face it. I think is what you said. I embrace it. Yep, here it is, and then it's just gone because all it is a teacher for me and is opportunity. But I don't run for things because I'm afraid of them anymore. And the military it seemed like there was always like this sledgehammer that was like 2 inches above our heads. Like, man, you want to lose your trident? Do this, and bam, you're gone. And I knew guys who lost their trident for politics, and politics is out of my life. Back when you and I were in the military in the beginning, politics existed, but it wasn't like the way things were done. Now it is the way. No one cares if you're right or wrong. It's just how does this look? Which again is all rat race stuff. It's like they care more about perception than reality. Which, okay, cool, I get it. That's for you guys. That's not for me. What I care about, what I genuinely care about, is what is. I do care about what I think reality is. Um, that's what matters to me. So yeah, there was a lot of things that I was grateful that I kind of put in my rucksack from the military that I just got to just leave on the ground and you know bye. I don't I don't need politics, dude. I don't need bureaucracy, man. I don't need I don't need fear. You can keep it. I lived with that for a while, and it's just none of my business anymore. So I just
Well,
no
what
thanks.
I said was because one of my friends, his name is Stephen Kuhn, is a good friend of mine. He says if you don't have a business plan, you don't have a business. You have a hobby. And a lot of guys and girls, when they get out of the military, they start a t-shirt company, hat company, liquor. 10 months later, there's $10,000 in debt and don't know what the hell just happened because they never had a business plan or an SOP before they started their business. So talk to us about, 2018 when you started your business. Talk about, if you didn't have an SOP, how important it is for a business to have a business plan.
Yeah, it was funny because all I knew is that I wanted to start a company, but I didn't know how to. So I was very lucky. I was able to turn back to the Honor Foundation and say, "Hey guys, I was thinking about doing this. Do you know anybody can help me out?" And they're like, "Yeah, absolutely." So they sent, this is no lie, they sent me the guy who invented the stork for the blasted pickles, the guy who said, "How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop?" The director of marketing, a Ford Motor Company, like internet marketing, and then Kroger grocery store. All those guys all got an email chain and said, "Diego, show us your business plan." And I'm like, "What's that?" they're like, "Google it and then get back to us when you're done." And it was like a nightmare. Like in the military, especially in leadership, everybody's had to write like evaluations on your people, or some kind of professional correspondence. That, especially in the beginning, it was like pulling teeth. It was, I've had many chiefs look at my eval writings that I was writing for other guys, and they're like, "Nope, this sucks. Do it over again." But over time, it got better, and that's exactly what happened with them. I think I presented them my first business plan. It was something like 85 pages long, and they were so patient and so kind. And they sat through the whole entire thing, and they're like, "All right, well, turn this into 10 pages, and you've got a startup cost of $2.2 million. Figure out how to do it for $100,000." And I was like, "There's no way. Like, that's impossible. You obviously didn't hear my idea, because there's no way I could do that for 100,000." They're like, "Figure it out." And so I did. And so, and the funny thing was, by the time the Trident approach was up and running, and it was, we were moving, I had spent $100,000 on. I was like, "Man, these guys are awesome." So, but here's the thing, I was sitting on an entrepreneurship panel, and they were like, "Hey, what are things that you need to make sure that people who are entrepreneurs, that they need to know?" And many of them said, "If you're in this for money, you know, you're in the wrong place," or whatever. And I always feel like, and this kind of goes back to my perspective on fear. Like, if you lost 10 or 20 grand trying to start up your business and it didn't work on, it just flopped, like, I don't see that as a failure at all. I genuinely, to my bones, see that as part of the process of figuring yourself out. Like, we're not meant to go, in my mind, to the best I can understand, we're not meant to go through this life, with this steady upward progression, making steps and progress, abound. Like, I just don't see that. What I do see is, when I fail, and sometimes fail hard, and I've got broken bones to prove this, like, that means nothing other than, what did I learn from this and how do I grow from this? So if you're hell bent on starting a business and you don't want to do a business plan, don't do it. See what happens. Maybe be the first, or who cares? Whatever. You can't go. There's something I definitely learned. Really, even where this really kind of came from was being a father. But once I saw it, and I saw that it was everywhere. It was in the military, it was in business, whatever. Is, don't worry about getting it right, because you can't go wrong. Uh, when I look at my first, a try at becoming a SEAL, and that didn't work out, and now, whatever, 30 or 40 years later, looking back, I'm like, nothing wrong happened, nothing bad happened. I needed all that stuff in order to get, being a SEAL kind of is really quite inconsequential, but all the stuff that happened in the meantime, when I see now that my purpose was never to be a SEAL, but it was just to be, and to learn and exist through life, it's all good. I mean, it is all good. So if you want to start a business and you don't want a business plan, don't do it. Do whatever you want. Do however you want. If you end up in jail, if you end up broke, guess what? There's something good out of there. If you want to avoid that, then one of the most valuable lessons that I did learn from the Honor Foundation was the concept of 50 cups of coffee. And what that is you have a cup of coffee with 50 different people who have done what you're trying to do, and just sit down with them, definitely have something to write with, and ask them what their most powerful lessons learned are and what you're trying to do. And what ends up happening after that 50 cups of coffee is you have about 5,000 years of experience coming back at you saying, everybody's going to tell you to do this. Don't do that. See, the thing is, over 50 cups of coffee, you're going to have about 20 or 30 people saying the same thing. Hey, everybody says start a business plan. Don't do that, or whatever it is. Doesn't matter what it is, but you'll start to see. Point is, you're going to see trends of the best things you could do and absolute things that you need to avoid. And I would say, if you want to do this as efficiently as possible and saving money and time and effort and all of that, knock out your 50 cups of coffee. And then you'll know exactly what money you need, where to spend it, how much time you need, where to spend it, all of that stuff. And then you can go. It's almost like when you're starting a fire in the wilderness, you don't just like start grabbing two rocks and sparking. You need to set up all your stuff. You need to set up your kindling, your like smaller pieces of wood, and then your middle piece of wood, and you get all that stuff prepared before you even make a spark. Because if you get that spark and you got nothing to burn, then you don't have anything. So I would say, for the people who are trying to start their business as efficiently as possible, 50 cups of coffee with 50 people who have done what you're trying to do, and you'll be off to a pretty good start.
I love that, and for me, like I said, I'm an accidental business owner. I just never meant to start this whole podcast, and now I get to hang out with gentlemen like you, and I will learn from you, and I will listen to every word again when I edit this, and it gets into my soul. So I actually get to learn from everybody. So I've had, I think, 350 cups of coffee because I'm up to like 400 interviews, and I'm still learning every day. But now I'm a big Shark Tank guy, and the only reason I bring it up because the Mavericks are in the playoffs, and I actually interviewed uh, Brian, which is oh, what's his name's brother, and we were talking about Mr. Cuban, Mark's brother, and we are talking about how on Shark Tank, if if you're not invested in your business, if you're not all in, they're not going to go in either. And I think a lot of people, they want to dip their toe into starting a business, but they want to use OPM. They want to use other people's money, and other
Yeah.
people are not going to invest with you if you're not fully invested in your own business. Correct?
Well, you'll find some people, but the whole idea is like, how successful is your business going to be if it is just this? I don't know. It's not easy to start a business. It's not even easy to just continue this podcast where money isn't necessarily coming in. I mean, you know, so, but it's okay if you want to start a business and you're not fully invested and you just dip your toes in, the business is going to come and it's going to go. And maybe all you need to learn at that time was how to commit yourself to something. It's not a failure just because your business was a failure. Who's to say that it will be? But just because it is, I mean, that has nothing to do with your sense of being and your purpose for being here. You know, maybe the lesson learned that you needed was, I really need to develop discipline and commitment for the things that I really want to blossom in my life. And maybe you learn that lesson through a failed business. It's it, that's perfect. There's nothing wrong with that. It's exactly how it should be. Um, what I would say for investors, somebody who invests in somebody who's not fully in, maybe you just need to learn, you know, if you're going to take your assets, something you work so hard for, to be a little bit more careful with it. And, no one is absolutely right all the time or whatever, but just, making better decisions based on the things that you understand, instead of just being so, oh, that's such a good idea. This guy's starting this whole new thing. Yeah, let's do it. I don't think this life has anything to do with achieving. I think it has everything to do with learning. I think so. Yeah, I don't really worry too much about. I mean, I swear to God, failure doesn't mean really anything to me other than, well, what did I learn and where can we go from here?
For that now, like in my field, The average podcast lasts 13 episodes, and and they're done. So out of 2 million podcasts, there's about 1 million that are active, and less than 100, less than 10% go past 100 episodes. So I believe in that consistency will trump intensity every time. So now talk to us about you, because you started business in 2018, and then bam, the world gets shaken to its core and you get hit with COVID. So I'm sure that had, what was that like, starting a business and then this whole world shakes?
Yeah, I'll start off answering that question by, sending hugs to anybody who was really devastated by COVID. Um, and I mean that. And the reason why I mean that is because what I'm about to say can kind of feel really inflammatory with some people, but I can only be honest. COVID was probably about the best thing in the world that could have happened to the Trident approach, because there was it immediately, like the next day, because it was almost like there was a day that COVID hit, even though it had been kind of going on since like last December. But there was a day where the country officially decided to shut down, and at least that's the way I remember it. And so all of a sudden, the thing turned to, how do we pivot? Pivot was the word. What do we have to do to maintain relevancy and all that? And I know every organization has their own things, their own problems, their own all this, but we didn't pivot at all. Uh, well, that's not true. We totally pivoted, but instead of pivoting outwards, we pivoted inwards. We didn't do anything to continue um, figuring out how to make money. We just stopped, and we basically went in this place of stillness, and we went inward. And I can tell you, 10 years ago, me going into my mind would not have been a good thing. But as timing the way that it was, me going into my mind was nothing but empowering for not only me, but for what was going on with the Trident approach, because we were starting to line up events and we were getting really busy, and all of a sudden, like, our operational tempo was, all right, cool, we're doing it, we're in this, we've got all these clients, we got all these big names, we got all this, like, this is awesome. We would have just been on the whitewater rapid, just ongoing. But because the rapids absolutely just stopped, and getting in this place of stillness, all of a sudden, there's this saying, do without doing. That's exactly what we did. We did nothing, in a way. Um, but when the COVID waters started to kind of subside, now we got a book coming out. We got, our online programs coming out. Our approach to doing these events has shifted a lot to where we can go deeper and deeper and deeper with people. Like, everything changed by doing nothing. And that only happened because of the effects that COVID had on the world. So now when we have these interactions with people, there is a level of depth that we're able to go to that we always kind of wanted to go to, but we didn't, how do you get somebody who's still stuck in the egoic mind or still stuck in a rat race? How do we help them get to flow? I mean, that's a very, very different conversation with us now than it was pre-COVID. So really grateful for that.
Now, for me, and a lot of people said I was crazy, even though me and my wife, we're still going through COVID for the first time. But as soon as we heard that things are going to be locked down, I was like, okay, so this is a great time to start a podcast, because there's
Yeah.
a lot of people other people are going to be as a positive, even though it shut down the business that I was in. So I kind of had to pivot. Um, so I want to thank people that have been following me for the last 3 years, and if it wasn't, two main events in my life that changed my whole life was 9/11. 9/11 changed everything about my life, and 9/11 actually saved my life, so I wouldn't be the man I am today. and COVID actually changed my whole life, my perspective on life. So, but now talk to us about exactly what you're doing. Tell us about your business and what you're doing now.
Yeah. So we just do personal team and leadership development, but we go as deep as you want. We help people understand what the rat race is and see how it kind of manifests itself and shows up in their lives. And we show them how to shift over to one towards flow. And so we take that everything with leadership. You have this old mindset of, especially how we were raised in leading in the military. There's some amazing things that I learned in leadership, but almost all of it was completely devoid of the human element of, compassion and empathy and patience and understanding and all that. So, I mean, that's really where it all came from to begin with. Was the most common question we got when I was active duty in the SEAL teams from corporate executives was, how is it that you work and communicate so well together in the SEAL teams? Well, we had answers for that, but I found myself not being truthful in my responses, because I would share, yeah, absolutely, these are like awesome things that help SEALs be elite, but then I would add in all this other stuff that I knew well that we didn't actually do, but I wanted to share that with them just to so that I could answer them in the best way possible. And so when I got out of the military and I knew that I could do anything in the whole world that I wanted to do, that question came up so many times that I was like, man, what if we started an organization that help people understand this? So everything starts with a self, like all of it does. And so we help people understand who they are in a genuine way, not in the way that's been told to them, but who they actually are, and learn how to step into that power. And the reason why that matters is because people who are not there, but who are on high performing teams, there's always a breaking point. There's always something that goes on. And especially in leadership, if you don't have this solid foundation, a really strong root system, I mean, you can do a lot of damage to people who are absolutely depending on you for everything, for guidance, for your income, for the way ahead, everything. So everything we do starts with the self. So we coach individuals, um, but then we also coach teams, either corporate or athletic teams, and then we coach leaders, and we do that through a number of different ways, either keynotes or workshops. But one of the most common things that we do is we take assembled teams out onto the beach, and we basically put them through really a fun version of SEAL training, but it's not to put or break people down, and it's not to find the next Navy SEALs. It's to find out where you are when you're under stress. Where does your mind go when you're under stress? Where does your ability to lead and operate as a team go when you're under stress? Right. And almost always, uh, when people see, because there's no denying it, because it's all about awareness, right? So we make sure that you're bloody aware of what's going on, who you are, where you're, all that stuff. Almost always people say, if I could have done that better, I would have. And something that I love so much, there's two things that I really love. There's billions of things that I love about the Trident approach, but two of them is, um, the Trident approach is a safe place to make mistakes. We want people to lean into what feels natural to them so that we can see what's going on and then fix it if we want to. That way, when mistakes are made, they're not personal. People aren't getting upset at each other because they all understand that we're in this essentially like an exploratory phase of getting back to who we are. The other thing that I love about the Trident approach is we don't tell people what to do at all. We help them find their way, and we stand shoulder to shoulder with them as they go there. Um, the last thing we want to do, as a Trident approach is insert our ego into your growth development process. Like, that's silly to me. So many people say like, oh, we're the Navy SEALs of Google and all that stuff. Oh, believe me, you don't want Navy SEALs running any departments in Google at all, because you'll go out of business. We'll just blow shit up. We'll break things. You don't want that. What you want to do is be the best of you. And so here's how you can really find, I mean, genuinely find that. No, beyond all the rhetoric and the cliches and all that, like, this is you. Let's bring that to the table and unleash it. So So that's what we do. We take people out on the beach and we have them kind of go through these like Navy SEAL based like little stations, but these stations are all designed to elicit responses in culture, trust, leadership, communication, teamwork, or ego awareness, or whatever it is, and it helps them not only get an awareness of it, but start to build plans and give them actual practical application in performing in the way that they think is the best, so that when they go to work on Monday, they've actually had practical application and putting this stuff to use. So when there's some sort of dysfunction or argument or whatever going on at work, it's no longer like this reactive, like, hey, it's more like, oh, I've already been through this. Here's probably the best way for me to handle this. And like everything, as long as it's true and genuine, then it's easy day. So that's what we do.
One thing I love about, the Navy SEALs and, you guys, like I said, I have a bunch of you guys that I have on my friends list, and I'm very grateful for you guys. And I learn a lot, and I hear all the time, the only easy day was yesterday. And I think it's a great way to live your life if you really think about it that way. That today is going to could be a hard day, but the only easy day was yesterday. And if you have that kind of mindset that you're going to make it through whatever it is you're going through. But you just have to have that positive mindset. And it sounds like what you're doing is something that my friend Joe DeSena from Spartan, he has that TV show called Business Boot Camp. It's kind of like you guys are doing the same thing, just in different parts of the world, where you put a team out, and once you put a team out doing sometimes physical stuff, you're going to realize there's a weak point here and a weak point and a strength that you never knew, that you sometimes you never realize that the person you thought is your weak point is actually the one that's holding it all together. And
Yeah.
so I think that what you're doing is great. Because putting people under pressure is, that's when you find out what's real or what's not real or what's holding you back.
Yeah. The one thing that I really love about that whole thing is, people say, well, you're showing us your true colors, who you really are. And I don't believe that to be the case at all. I think how you respond in crisis or in times of stress has nothing to do with who you are. I think it just has a reflection on where you are. This is what I'm capable of doing right now in this time and space. But that doesn't mean that that's all you're ever capable of ever being. There are ways to strengthen and develop and learn and explore. So when the next time something as stressful or even more stressful shows up, you respond completely different. So that in and of itself has nothing to do with who you are, because who you are doesn't change, but where you are changes all the time. So um, yeah, it becomes, when you start to look at things in that way, because so much of what we do is um, it's not so noticeable, but going through our programs like family therapy for teams, and even for people, is just showing people another way. And what you're talking about before, about, oh man, I didn't even realize that this person had such a huge impact on our organization. Giving those people a stage to stand out and just be seen for who they've always been, is an amazing opportunity that I love with these outdoor events, where these are the things that really help to create genuine places of engagement and learning and understanding. Like, man, you know what, maybe I've been looking at this person the wrong way the entire time. That's one of the things, another one of the things that I love so much about what we're doing. So yeah.
So now you said you have a book in the works or coming out. Tell us what
hmm
you got going on, how we can find you, and how we can support your mission.
Yeah, the book is going to be coming out this fall. It has everything to do with leaving the rat race and pursuing flow, and just a higher way of being. So we're excited about that. And it's essentially what it is. It's all about the Trident approach and our approach to being. And that's our website, is thetridentapproach.com. You can, I spend most of my time, the social media platform that I use the most is on LinkedIn. My name is Diego Ugalde. If that's weird, I'm Diego at thetridentapproach.com as well. You can find us there. And we coach individuals and teams as small as 4, and we train groups over 300 or more. So it just kind of depends on what people's needs are.
I love it. So, Diego, if you would have one words of wisdom, if somebody is looking to get out of the rat race, what would be your last words of wisdom for them?
Everything starts with the self. Wherever you're going or whatever you're trying to do, go there and do that, as long as what is within you is at the basis of what you're looking for. You know, looking for titles or degrees or accolades or what house, whatever you want, it's just going to turn into nothing once you get it. But what always remains is who you are. So leave the fear baggage alone, like let it be, and figure out how you can do what you're trying to do purely based in love. And if you do that starting with the self, then you're going to find out on your own in your own time that, you know, with the rat race, it's never enough, but with flow, there's always more. And there's a sense of abundance that comes with it. So that's what really gets us moving. Believe me, I run through broken legs and all that stuff. And yeah, okay, cool, whatever. It's not for me. But there's this whole other way of being that really it's a healthy way of existing, I feel like. And can't wait for the next day. It's good stuff.
I love it, Diego. I want to say thank you, guys. Just remember, I always say that the three most important words in the English language are today, I decide. You don't have to be the same person when you go to bed tonight as the same person that woke up. So, guys, just remember that you're one decision away from being the best you. And, guys, just want to say thank you for always being with us. And, like Oprah Winfrey always says, the best way to help yourself is to help others. Guys, remember vertical momentum. The only way to go is but up. And we will see you guys tomorrow.